The Stoic CEO, Ancient Philosophy for Modern Leaders.
Ancient Wisdom for the Boardroom.
Introduction. Why Stoicism? Why now? In the 23 centuries since Zeno of Citium first taught philosophy in a painted porch in Athens, the world has transformed beyond recognition. We have built machines that think, connected billions of minds through invisible networks, and created wealth that ancient emperors could not have imagined. Yet the fundamental challenges of leadership remain unchanged. How do you make decisions when the future is uncertain? How do you remain steady when markets crash, competitors attack, and your best plans crumble? How do you lead people through fear and change? How do you maintain your integrity when shortcuts tempt you? How do you find meaning in work that consumes your life? These questions haunted Marcus Aurelius as he governed Rome. They haunted Seneca as he advised emperors and managed vast wealth. They haunt every CEO, founder, and leader today. Stoicism offers no magic formulas or quick fixes. It offers something better, a systematic philosophy for living and leading well, tested across millennia, practiced by slaves and emperors alike. This book translates ancient Stoic wisdom into modern leadership practice. You will learn to control what you can, accept what you cannot, and develop the wisdom to know the difference. You will build emotional resilience, make better decisions under pressure, and lead with a virtue rather than mere ambition. The Stoics believed philosophy was not academic theory but daily practice. This book is designed the same way. Read it, practice it, become the leader you are capable of being.
Part 1. Foundations. Chapter 1. The Boardroom Philosophers. The Philosophy Born in Crisis. Stoicism was not invented by comfortable academics and ivory towers. It was forged in chaos. Around 300 BCE, a merchant named Zeno of Citium lost everything in a shipwreck. His cargo, his wealth, his plans, all gone in a Mediterranean storm. Stranded in Athens with nothing, he wandered into a bookshop and encountered the teachings of Socrates. That chance reading led him to study philosophy, and eventually to develop his own school of thought. He taught in a public colonnade called the Stoa Poikile, the painted porch, and his followers became known as Stoics. From its very origin, Stoicism was practical philosophy. It emerged from loss, uncertainty, and the need to rebuild. It asked a fundamental question that every leader must eventually face. When everything external is stripped away, who are you, and how will you live? This is why Stoicism resonates so powerfully with leaders today. You did not come to leadership through a comfortable, predictable path. You have faced setbacks, betrayals, failed ventures, and sleepless nights. You have watched competitors succeed where you struggled. You have made decisions with incomplete information and lived with the consequences. Stoicism does not pretend these difficulties will disappear. It teaches you to meet them with wisdom, courage, and equanimity. The Emperor, CEO, Marcus Aurelius. If any ancient figure embodies the Stoic leader, it is Marcus Aurelius, Roman emperor from 161 to 180 CE. Marcus never wanted to be emperor. He was a scholar by temperament, drawn to books and philosophical discussions rather than politics and war. Yet duty called him to the most powerful position in the known world. His reign was not peaceful. He faced plagues that killed millions, wars on multiple frontiers, a near bankruptcy of the Roman treasury, and betrayal by a trusted general who attempted to usurp him. He spent most of his rule not in Rome, but in military camps along the Danube, fighting Germanic tribes in brutal conditions. And yet in those camps, by candlelight after exhausting days, he wrote his private journal, the work we now call Meditations. These writings were never intended for publication. They were personal exercises, reminders to himself of Stoic principles. They reveal a leader struggling with the same challenges you face: frustration with difficult people, the temptation to anger, anxiety about things beyond his control, the search for meaning in demanding work. When you wake up in the morning, tell yourself, the people I deal with today will be meddling, ungrateful, arrogant, dishonest, jealous, and surly. But I cannot be angry at them, for we are made for cooperation, Marcus wrote. This is not detached philosophy. This is a CEO preparing himself for a day of difficult meetings. Marcus Aurelius demonstrates that Stoicism is not about escaping leadership's pressures, but meeting them fully. He did not retreat to a monastery. He governed an empire, commanded armies, and made decisions affecting millions, all while cultivating inner tranquility and virtue. If the most powerful man in the ancient world found Stoicism essential for leadership, perhaps modern leaders should pay attention.
The advisor and the slave. Stoicism's universality is proven by its other famous practitioners. Seneca was a Roman statesman, advisor to Emperor Nero, and one of the wealthiest men in the empire. He wrote extensively on Stoic principles, exploring how to manage wealth without being corrupted by it, how to advise powerful people, and how to maintain integrity in a corrupt court. His letters and essays read like executive coaching from 2,000 years ago. He wrote about time management, the danger of busyness without purpose, how to handle criticism, and how to face catastrophic loss. Seneca was not a perfect Stoic. He struggled with the tension between his philosophy and his participation in Nero's brutal regime. But his imperfection makes him relatable. He was a practical philosopher trying to apply wisdom in messy, real-world conditions. Epictetus, by contrast, was born a slave. He was owned, had no rights, and possessed nothing. Yet he became one of the most influential Stoic teachers in history. His central teaching emerged directly from his experience. Some things are within our control, and some things are not. Make the best use of what is in your power, and take the rest as it happens, he taught. For a slave, this was not abstract philosophy. It was survival. He could not control his external circumstances, but he could control his responses, his character, and his inner life. This made him, in his own estimation, freer than masters who were enslaved by their passions and attachments. The range of Stoic practitioners, emperor to slave, wealthy advisor to shipwrecked merchant, demonstrates that these principles apply regardless of your position. Whether you run a global corporation or a struggling startup, whether you command thousands of employees or work alone, the Stoic framework illuminates your path.
The 4 virtues of Stoic leadership. Stoicism is built on 4 cardinal virtues. These are not arbitrary rules, but descriptions of excellence in living and leading. Wisdom, Sophia. Wisdom is the ability to navigate complex situations, to see clearly what matters and what does not, to make sound judgments despite incomplete information. For the Stoic CEO, wisdom means understanding your business deeply, reading situations accurately, and making decisions that serve long-term flourishing rather than short-term ego gratification. Wisdom also means knowing what you do not know. The wise leader seeks counsel, listens to dissenting views, and remains willing to change course when evidence demands it. Courage, Andrea. Courage is not the absence of fear, but the willingness to act rightly despite fear. For leaders, this means making difficult decisions, having hard conversations, taking calculated risks, and standing firm on ethical principles when pressure mounts. Courage includes the strength to admit mistakes, to terminate underperforming strategies, to deliver honest feedback, and to challenge comfortable assumptions. It is the backbone of effective leadership. Justice, Dichotomy. Justice is giving each person their due, treating stakeholders fairly, and building systems that distribute benefits and burdens appropriately. For the Stoic CEO, this encompasses how you treat employees, customers, shareholders, and communities. Justice also means holding yourself accountable to the same standards you apply to others. It is the foundation of trust and sustainable business relationships. Temperance, Sophrosny. Temperance is moderation, self-control, and the ability to regulate desires. In business, this means avoiding the hubris that accompanies success, maintaining perspective during both booms and busts, and not allowing external rewards to corrupt your character. Temperance prevents the excesses that destroy leaders, the greed that leads to fraud, the arrogance that blinds judgment, the addiction to growth at any cost.
Chapter 2. The Dichotomy of Control.
The most powerful idea in Stoicism. Epictetus opened his Enchiridion, the handbook of Stoic practice, with words that have echoed across 2,000 years. Some things are within our power, while others are not. Within our power are opinion, motivation, desire, aversion, and, in a word, whatever is of our own doing. Not within our power are our body, our property, reputation, office, and, in a word, whatever is not of our own doing. This single distinction, the dichotomy of control, is the foundation upon which all Stoic practice rests. Master it, and you will transform how you lead. Ignore it, and you will exhaust yourself fighting battles you cannot win. Every CEO I have observed struggling with burnout, anxiety, or poor decision-making has made the same fundamental error. They have confused what they can control with what they cannot. They have invested enormous emotional energy in things beyond their influence while neglecting the things entirely within their power. The dichotomy of control corrects this error. What you cannot control. Let us be honest about the limits of your power. You cannot control the market. Consumer preferences shift. Recessions arrive without warning. Technological disruptions upend entire industries. Competitors innovate. Regulators change rules. Global events, pandemics, wars, natural disasters reshape the landscape overnight. You can analyze trends, prepare for scenarios, and position your company intelligently, but you cannot will the market to behave as you wish. No amount of strategic planning gives you control over macroeconomic forces. You cannot control other people. Employees will sometimes disappoint you. Customers will leave for competitors. Investors will second-guess your decisions. Board members will push back. Partners will break agreements. Talented people will resign at inconvenient moments. You can influence people through incentives, culture, and leadership, but influence is not control. Every person you encounter has their own motivations, fears, and choices. You cannot reach into their minds and dictate their behavior. You cannot control your reputation. Others will form opinions of you based on incomplete information, distorted through their own biases and agendas. Competitors will spread unflattering narratives. Former employees will share grievances. Media will mischaracterize your positions. You can act with integrity and communicate clearly, but your reputation exists in other people's minds, and their minds are not yours to command. You cannot control outcomes. This is perhaps the hardest truth for achievement-oriented leaders to accept. You can work diligently, plan brilliantly, and execute flawlessly, and still fail. External factors can overwhelm even the best efforts. Luck, timing, and circumstances beyond your control will always influence results. The Stoics were not naive optimists. They understood that life does not guarantee rewards to the deserving. Virtue and effort improve your odds, but do not guarantee outcomes.
What you can control. If so much lies beyond your control, what remains? According to the Stoics, quite a lot. You control your judgments. How you interpret events is entirely your choice. A major client departing can be judged as a catastrophe or as an opportunity to reduce concentration risk and pursue better fit customers. A product failure can be judged as humiliation or as invaluable learning. The event itself is neutral. Your judgment gives it meaning. This is not mere positive thinking or denial of reality. It is recognition that events and interpretations are separate. You can see things clearly, including genuine threats and losses, without adding unnecessary suffering through unhelpful judgments. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "If you are distressed by anything external, the pain is not due to the thing itself, but to your estimate of it, and this you have the power to revoke at any moment. You control your intentions. You decide what you are trying to accomplish and why. You choose your goals, your priorities, and your purpose. No external force can determine your intentions without your consent." The Stoic leader sets intentions aligned with virtue rather than purely external rewards. You can intend to build a great company, serve customers well, develop your people, and act with integrity. These intentions are entirely within your power, regardless of whether outcomes cooperate. You control your effort. The quality of your preparation, the diligence of your work, the care you bring to decisions, these are yours to command. You can show up fully present or distracted. You can think deeply or react thoughtlessly. You can prepare thoroughly or wing it. Effort does not guarantee results, but it is the proper object of your focus. The Stoics would say, "Work as if everything depends on your effort, then accept outcomes with equanimity." You control your responses. When bad news arrives, you choose your response. When someone criticizes you unfairly, you choose your response. When a crisis erupts, you choose your response. The space between stimulus and response is where leadership happens. In that space lies your power. A leader who responds thoughtfully rather than reacting impulsively makes better decisions and models composure for the entire organization. You control your character. Ultimately, you control who you become. Every decision either strengthens or weakens your character. Every challenge reveals opportunities to practice virtue or reinforce vice. External circumstances can take away money, position, and reputation. They cannot take away your character without your permission. This is the Stoics' unassailable fortress.
The CEO's circle of influence. Let us translate this ancient wisdom into your daily reality. Imagine 3 concentric circles. The outer circle. No control. This contains everything genuinely beyond your influence. The macroeconomy, global events, competitors' decisions, consumer culture, technological change, aging, death. Energy invested in worrying about this circle is wasted. The Stoic CEO monitors these factors for planning purposes, but does not become emotionally entangled in them. You cannot eliminate recession risk by anxiously checking market indicators every hour. The middle circle. Influence. This contains things you can affect, but not determine. Employee performance, customer satisfaction, investor confidence, board relationships, company culture, your health, partially. This circle deserves appropriate attention. You can take actions that improve the odds. Smart hiring, good management, quality products, clear communication. These influence outcomes. But influence is probabilistic, not certain. The Stoic CEO works diligently in this circle while accepting that results will vary. The inner circle. Full control. This contains your judgments, intentions, effort, responses, and character. Nothing external can touch this circle without your consent. This is where the Stoic CEO invests primary energy. By focusing here, you optimize what you can control. You make better judgments, you set wiser intentions, you give complete effort, you respond thoughtfully, you develop your character. When you master the inner circle, you show up more powerfully in the middle circle. Your influence increases because you are not wasting energy on the outer circle or becoming destabilized by setbacks. Practical application. The morning reset. Each morning before work, the Stoic CEO performs a mental exercise.
What will I face today that lies outside my control? List the meetings, the market conditions, the pending decisions that depend on others, the uncertainties. Acknowledge them. Then consciously release attachment to specific outcomes. What lies within my control today? Your preparation for each meeting, your attitude when receiving news, your effort on key priorities, your responses to whatever arises, your commitment to virtue. Where will I focus my energy? Commit to investing your finite time and attention on the inner circle and appropriate portions of the middle circle. Refuse to waste resources on the outer circle. This takes 5 minutes. It transforms your entire day.
The freedom within. Epictetus, remember, a former slave, concluded that this understanding made him freer than any emperor. External circumstances could not enslave him because he had secured the only thing that truly mattered, his inner life. You may not be enslaved in the literal sense, but consider what imprisons you. Anxiety about outcomes you cannot determine, anger at people you cannot change, frustration with circumstances you cannot alter, fear of events you cannot prevent. These emotional prisons are self-constructed, and you hold the key. The dichotomy of control does not promise easy circumstances. It promises freedom within any circumstance. The Stoic CEO faces the same challenges as every other leader, but faces them with equanimity, clarity, and focus. In the chapters that follow, we will build on this foundation. You will learn to transform obstacles into advantages, regulate your emotions under pressure, and lead with virtue. All of it rests on this essential distinction. Control what you can, accept what you cannot. Find freedom in the difference. Chapter 3. Obstacles as Opportunities. The obstacle is the way. Marcus Aurelius wrote a passage that has inspired leaders for centuries. Our actions may be impeded, but there can be no impeding our intentions or dispositions, because we can accommodate and adapt. The mind adapts and converts to its own purposes the obstacle to our acting. The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way. Read that final line again. What stands in the way becomes the way. This is not motivational optimism or denial of difficulty. It is a profound reorientation toward adversity. The Stoics understood that obstacles are not interruptions to your path, they are your path. The very thing blocking you contains within it the seeds of progress. For the modern CEO, this insight transforms how you approach every setback, failure, and crisis. The alchemy of adversity. Consider what obstacles provide that smooth sailing cannot. Obstacles reveal truth. When everything goes well, weaknesses hide. Success covers dysfunction. Growth masks inefficiency. Only when obstacles arrive do you see your organization clearly. The processes that break under pressure. The people who rise or crumble. The assumptions that prove false. This is invaluable information. A company that has never been tested does not know itself. The obstacle strips away illusions and reveals reality. Obstacles build capacity. Muscles grow through resistance, not rest. The same principle applies to organizations and leaders. Easy times produce soft capabilities. Difficult times forge strength, resilience, and adaptability. The CEO who has navigated a near bankruptcy possesses skills that no business school could teach. The team that has survived a crisis together has bonds no team-building retreat could create. The company that has pivoted through disruption has developed muscles for future pivots. Obstacles eliminate competition. When markets contract or industries face headwinds, weaker players exit. Those who remain inherit their market share, their talent, and their customers. The obstacle that feels like a threat is simultaneously clearing your competitive field. Many of history's greatest companies were forged during recessions or built their dominance by weathering storms that eliminated rivals. Obstacles focus attention. Prosperity disperses energy. When resources are abundant and growth is easy, organizations pursue too many initiatives, tolerate too much waste, and lose strategic focus. Obstacles force prioritization. They clarify what truly matters. They strip away distractions and demand concentration on essentials. Many CEOs report that their companies emerged from crises leaner, more focused, and more effective than before.
Reframing, the Stoic practice. The Stoics practiced deliberate reframing, actively choosing interpretations that empower rather than diminish. This is not self-deception. You do not pretend that losses are not losses or that pain is not painful. You acknowledge reality fully. Then you ask, given this reality, what opportunity exists? What can I learn? How can I use this? When a major customer leaves, the Stoic CEO feels the sting and then reframes. This reveals over-concentration in our revenue base. Now we must diversify. This frees resources we were dedicating to a demanding account. Now we can pursue better fit customers. This tests whether our value proposition is strong enough. Now we must improve or validate. The loss is real. The opportunity within the loss is also real. Reframing does not deny the first, it illuminates the second. When a product launch fails, the Stoic CEO feels the disappointment and then reframes. This provides market data that no research could have given us. Now we know what customers actually want. This humbles us before we became arrogant. Now we will approach the next launch with more rigor. This tests our resilience and commitment. Now we prove what we are made of. Every obstacle contains such opportunities. The practice is learning to see them. Case studies, leaders who transformed setbacks. History offers abundant examples of leaders who embodied this principle. The bankruptcy that built an empire. In 1921, a young entrepreneur named Walt Disney started his first animation company, Laugh-O-Gram Studio, in Kansas City. Within 2 years, the company was bankrupt. Disney was so broke he could not afford food, surviving on dog food from a nearby cannery. The obstacle could have ended his career. Instead, Disney moved to Hollywood with almost nothing and started again. The lessons from his failure about business management, distribution deals, and creative control informed every decision that built the Disney empire. The bankruptcy was not a detour from his path, it was the path. What he learned in failure made later success possible.
The firing that sparked innovation. In 1985, Steve Jobs was forced out of Apple, the company he had founded. The board sided with the CEO Jobs had recruited, and he was stripped of responsibilities until he resigned. Jobs later called this the best thing that could have happened to him. Freed from Apple's constraints, he founded Next and acquired Pixar. The technologies and lessons from these ventures proved essential when he returned to Apple in 1997 and led its transformation into the world's most valuable company. The obstacle of exile became the path to reinvention. The crisis that forged character. In 1982, Johnson & Johnson faced every CEO's nightmare. 7 people in Chicago died after taking Tylenol capsules that had been laced with cyanide. The company's most important product was now associated with murder. CEO James Burke faced enormous pressure to minimize the crisis, protect the brand quietly, and avoid expensive action. Instead, he ordered a nationwide recall of all Tylenol products, 31 million bottles worth over $100 million. The obstacle became an opportunity to demonstrate the company's values. Burke's transparent, customer-first response is now studied as the gold standard of crisis management. Johnson & Johnson's reputation was not destroyed by the crisis, it was enhanced by the response to the crisis.
Building anti-fragile organizations. Nassim Nicholas Taleb introduced the concept of anti-fragility, systems that gain from disorder rather than merely surviving it. Fragile systems break under stress. Robust systems survive stress. Anti-fragile systems improve because of stress. The Stoic CEO builds anti-fragile organizations. Anti-fragile strategy. Rather than betting everything on predictions, the anti-fragile company maintains optionality. It pursues experiments that have limited downside but unlimited upside. It diversifies bets so that any single failure is survivable while any single success can be transformative. When obstacles arrive, the anti-fragile company has options to exercise. It is not locked into a single path that the obstacle has now blocked. Anti-fragile culture. Rather than shielding employees from challenges, the anti-fragile culture exposes them to manageable difficulties. It celebrates learning from failure rather than punishing all mistakes. It develops people who have been tested and proven capable. When obstacles arrive, the anti-fragile culture responds with energy and creativity rather than panic and paralysis. Anti-fragile mindset. The leader's own anti-fragility matters most. If you break under pressure, the organization breaks with you. If you become stronger through adversity, you model resilience for everyone. The Stoic practices we are exploring, the dichotomy of control, reframing obstacles as opportunities, emotional regulation, all build anti-fragility in the leader's mind. The practice, obstacle inventory. When facing any significant obstacle, the Stoic CEO conducts an obstacle inventory. What truth is this revealing that I could not see before? What capacity will this build in me and my organization? What competitors or distractions might this eliminate? What focus is this forcing upon us? What opportunity exists within or because of this obstacle? Write the answers. The act of writing forces clarity and prevents rumination. Then ask, given all of this, what is my next right action? The obstacle does not disappear through this exercise, but your relationship to it transforms. You move from victim to student, from passive sufferer to active responder. Embracing the obstacle. The Stoic CEO does not merely tolerate obstacles. In a profound sense, the Stoic CEO welcomes them. Not because suffering is enjoyable, it is not, but because obstacles are the raw material of growth, the tests that prove character, and the fires that forge capability. A life without obstacles would be a life without development. A leadership journey without setbacks would be a journey without learning. The obstacles are not interrupting your path to greatness, they are creating it. What stands in the way becomes the way. Chapter 4. Emotional Regulation Under Pressure. The myth of the emotionless Stoic. Before we proceed, let us dispel a persistent misunderstanding. Stoicism does not teach emotional suppression. The Stoics were not advocating for robotic leaders who feel nothing and respond to crisis with cold detachment. This caricature has damaged Stoicism's reputation and prevented many leaders from exploring its genuine wisdom. The Stoics felt deeply. Marcus Aurelius grieved when his children died. He lost at least 8 of 14. Seneca experienced fear when facing Nero's increasingly erratic behavior. Epictetus knew frustration with students who refused to learn. What distinguished the Stoics was not the absence of emotion, but the management of emotion. They experienced feelings without being controlled by them. They felt the initial surge, anger, fear, disappointment, desire, and then chose their response deliberately rather than reacting automatically. This distinction matters profoundly for leaders. You will feel anger when betrayed. You will feel fear when facing existential threats. You will feel anxiety when making high-stakes decisions with incomplete information. The question is not whether you will feel these emotions, but what you will do with them. The Stoic CEO feels everything and remains in command. Responding versus reacting. The difference between responding and reacting is the difference between effective and ineffective leadership.
Reaction is automatic. Something happens and you immediately act on the first impulse that arises. A critical email triggers an angry reply within minutes. A disappointing sales report triggers a harsh rebuke of the sales team. A competitive threat triggers panicked strategic pivoting. Reactions are fast, emotionally charged, and often regrettable. They emerge from the primitive parts of our brains that evolved for physical survival, not business complexity. The reaction that helped our ancestors flee predators does not help you navigate a boardroom crisis. Response is deliberate. Something happens and you pause. You observe your emotional reaction without immediately acting on it. You consider the situation from multiple angles. You choose an action aligned with your values and long-term interests. Responses are slower, thoughtful, and rarely regretted. They emerge from the higher cognitive functions that distinguish wise leaders from impulsive ones. The Stoics developed practices specifically designed to create space between stimulus and response. In that space, leadership happens. The pause, creating space. The most powerful technique for emotional regulation is also the simplest. Pause. When you feel a strong emotional reaction arising, stop. Do not speak. Do not write. Do not decide. Simply pause. Seneca advised counting to 10 when angry. This folk wisdom captures a genuine neurological reality. Strong emotions trigger hormonal cascades, cortisol, adrenaline, that impair judgment and narrow perception. These chemicals dissipate within minutes if not reinforced by rumination. The pause allows the storm to pass before you act within it. Practical applications. When you receive an infuriating email, do not reply immediately. Close it. Return in an hour or tomorrow. When an employee's mistake triggers anger, do not address it in the moment. Schedule a conversation for later. When a crisis erupts, resist the urge for immediate dramatic action. Gather information. Consult advisors. Act when you have clarity, not adrenaline. When negotiations become heated, call a recess. Bathroom breaks have saved more deals than clever tactics. The pause feels unnatural because our culture valorizes speed. Decisive leaders are supposed to act immediately, boldly, without hesitation. This is nonsense. Decisive leaders act at the right time, which is often not immediately. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "How much more grievous are the consequences of anger than the causes of it." The pause prevents those grievous consequences. Naming the emotion. The Stoics practiced careful observation of their inner states. Modern psychology has validated this approach. Simply naming an emotion reduces its intensity and its power over behavior. When you feel a strong reaction, identify it precisely. I am feeling angry because my authority was challenged in that meeting. I am feeling anxious because this decision could fail publicly. I am feeling jealous because that competitor achieved what I wanted. I am feeling hurt because someone I trusted criticized me. The naming does several things simultaneously. It activates your prefrontal cortex, the rational, executive part of your brain, which automatically moderates the emotional centers. It creates psychological distance between you and the emotion. You are not anger, you are experiencing anger. It allows you to examine the emotion's source and validity. Often, upon examination, you will discover that the emotion is disproportionate to its trigger. The anger at a small slight reveals accumulated frustration from other sources. The fear about a single decision reflects deeper insecurity about your capabilities. The naming surfaces these deeper currents for examination. Not all emotions are appropriate to their situations. Not all emotions deserve to guide action. Naming allows you to evaluate before acting.
High-stakes decision-making. The moments that most demand emotional regulation are high-stakes decisions. When consequences are significant and uncertainty is high, emotions intensify, and so does the danger of reactive decision-making. The Stoic CEO approaches high-stakes decisions with deliberate practices. Separate the decision from the announcement. Make important decisions in calm, private moments. Announce them later. This prevents the social pressure of meetings from distorting judgment and gives you time to reconsider before commitment becomes public. Seek disconfirming evidence. When you feel strongly that you are right, actively seek perspectives that challenge your position. Strong emotions create cognitive biases that filter information. Deliberately counteract this by requesting criticism and contrary data. Consider the view from above. The Stoics practiced imagining situations from a cosmic perspective, viewing Earth from space, considering events on the scale of centuries rather than days. This practice moderates emotional intensity by placing immediate concerns in larger context. Your quarterly numbers feel less catastrophic when considered against the arc of history. Your competitive threat feels less terrifying when considered against the forces that will reshape your entire industry regardless. Ask, what would I advise a friend? When a close friend faces a difficult decision, you offer calm, rational guidance. You are not hijacked by emotions because the decision is not yours. When facing your own difficult decisions, imagine you are advising a friend in identical circumstances. What would you tell them? This thought experiment creates psychological distance that enables clearer thinking. Sleep on it. Few decisions are so urgent they cannot wait until morning. The overnight period allows emotional intensity to dissipate and provides the cognitive benefits of sleep for complex problem solving. The decisions you agonize over at 11 p.m. often resolve with clarity by 7 a.m. Managing fear, anger, and anxiety. 3 emotions particularly plague leaders: fear, anger, and anxiety. Each requires specific Stoic responses. Fear. Fear responds to perceived threats. For leaders, these threats are usually reputational, financial, or professional rather than physical, but the emotional circuitry does not distinguish. The Stoic response to fear is rational examination. Ask, what exactly do I fear? What is the probability of this outcome? What would I do if it occurred? Could I survive it? Most feared outcomes are survivable. Many are unlikely. All are more manageable than fear suggests. Rational examination deflates fear without denying the genuine risks that warranted attention. Anger. Anger responds to perceived injustice or boundary violations. Seneca wrote extensively on anger, calling it temporary madness and the most dangerous of emotions for leaders. The Stoic response to anger is perspective-taking. Ask, what might explain this person's behavior? What pressures are they facing? Have I ever done something similar? Am I angry at the situation or at my own expectations? Often, anger reveals more about our own assumptions than about others' offenses. The employee who disappointed you may have faced constraints you did not see. The competitor who stole your customer was simply competing. Anxiety. Anxiety responds to uncertain futures. Leaders face constant uncertainty, making anxiety a persistent companion. The Stoic response to anxiety is the dichotomy of control. Ask, what aspect of this situation can I actually control? Am I anxious about outcomes or about my own preparation and responses? Redirect energy from worrying about outcomes to ensuring your effort and preparation are complete. Then release attachment to results. Anxiety diminishes when you stop demanding certainty that the universe cannot provide. The regulated leader. The CEO who masters emotional regulation gains enormous advantages. Your decisions improve because they emerge from wisdom rather than reactivity. Your relationships improve because people trust leaders who remain steady under pressure. Your influence improves because composure is contagious, and so is panic. Your health improves because chronic emotional dysregulation damages the body. Your example improves because everyone watches how the leader handles difficulty. The Stoic CEO feels everything and leads from a calm center within the storm. Chapter 5. Leading People with Virtue. The Character of the Leader. The Stoics believed that character is destiny. Not circumstances, not luck, not intelligence alone, but character. The quality of your inner life determines the quality of your outer results. This belief has profound implications for leadership. Organizations reflect their leaders. The character flaws you tolerate in yourself will manifest throughout your company. The virtues you cultivate will spread through your culture. You cannot compartmentalize. You cannot be ruthless in business and loving at home. You cannot be deceptive with competitors and honest with employees. Character is unified. Who you are in private is who you will eventually be revealed to be in public. The Stoic CEO therefore prioritizes character development above skill development. Skills can be hired. Character must be cultivated. The four cardinal virtues, wisdom, courage, justice, and temperance, provide the framework for this cultivation. Let us examine each as it applies to the daily work of leading people. Wisdom in strategy and decisions. Wisdom is the master virtue from which the others flow. Without wisdom, courage becomes recklessness, justice becomes rigidity, and temperance becomes passivity. For the leader, wisdom manifests in several domains. Strategic wisdom. The wise CEO sees the whole board, not just the immediate move. You understand second and third order consequences. You recognize patterns across industries and history. You distinguish between signal and noise in the endless stream of data. Strategic wisdom requires intellectual humility. You do not assume your current understanding is complete. You actively seek information that challenges your views. You surround yourself with people who think differently than you do. Marcus Aurelius, despite commanding the Roman Empire, regularly sought counsel from philosophers, generals, and administrators. He understood that the leader's position creates information distortion. People tell you what you want to hear. Wisdom requires deliberately counteracting this tendency. Decision wisdom. The wise CEO makes decisions appropriate to their significance. Trivial decisions receive minimal attention. Consequential decisions receive thorough analysis. Reversible decisions are made quickly. Irreversible decisions are made carefully. Many leaders invert this hierarchy. They agonize over small choices while rushing major commitments. Wisdom means matching your decision process to the decision's importance. Decision wisdom also means knowing when not to decide. Sometimes the wise choice is gathering more information. Sometimes it is allowing a situation to clarify naturally. The compulsion to decide immediately often reflects anxiety rather than wisdom. People wisdom. The wise CEO reads people accurately. You perceive motivations beneath behaviors. You understand what different individuals need to thrive. You recognize potential that others overlook and limitations that candidates conceal. This wisdom develops through attention and experience. Each person you lead teaches you something about human nature. The wise leader accumulates these lessons consciously and applies them with nuance. Courage in difficult conversations and bold moves. Courage is wisdom in action. Many leaders know the right thing to do, but lack the courage to do it. Stoic leadership closes the gap between knowing and doing. Conversational courage. The most common failure of leadership courage is avoiding difficult conversations. Underperforming employees are tolerated rather than developed or removed. Problematic behaviors are ignored rather than addressed. Strategic disagreements are smoothed over rather than resolved. The courageous CEO has the hard conversations promptly and directly. You tell people what they need to hear, not what they want to hear. You deliver critical feedback as a gift rather than an attack. Honest assessment offered in service of the other person's growth. This requires emotional regulation from the previous chapter. Difficult conversations trigger anxiety in most leaders. Courage is not the absence of this anxiety, but the willingness to act despite it. Strategic courage. Business requires calculated risk-taking. New markets must be entered. Existing businesses must be disrupted before competitors disrupt them. Resources must be committed to uncertain ventures. The courageous CEO makes bold moves when analysis supports them. You do not wait for certainty that will never come. You act on probability and prepared to adjust as reality provides feedback. Strategic courage also means retreating when necessary. It takes courage to admit a strategy is failing, to shut down a beloved initiative, to pivot away from sunk costs. Sometimes the boldest move is the disciplined withdrawal. Moral courage. The deepest form of courage is moral, the willingness to do right when doing right is costly. This means refusing profitable opportunities that violate your values. It means speaking truth to powerful stakeholders. It means accepting personal consequences rather than compromising integrity. Seneca ultimately paid with his life for his moral positions, forced to suicide by Emperor Nero. Few modern leaders face such extremity. But the principle holds. Genuine leadership requires willingness to sacrifice personal advantage for ethical commitment. Justice in how you treat stakeholders. Justice is giving each person and group their due. For the Stoic CEO, this virtue governs all stakeholder relationships. Justice toward employees. Just treatment means fair compensation, honest feedback, appropriate recognition, and genuine opportunity. It means holding everyone to the same standards regardless of personal relationships or political considerations. It means terminating people with dignity and supporting those who struggle. Justice does not mean treating everyone identically. Different contributions warrant different rewards. Different circumstances warrant different accommodations. Justice means treating people appropriately given relevant differences, not ignoring those differences in false equality. Justice towards customers. Just treatment means delivering genuine value, honoring commitments, and communicating honestly. It means pricing fairly, not exploiting ignorance or desperation. It means acknowledging mistakes and making them right. The just company does not view customers as targets to be manipulated, but as partners in value exchange. This perspective is not naively altruistic. It is strategically wise. Just treatment builds trust that compounds over time into sustainable competitive advantage. Justice toward shareholders. Just treatment means honest reporting, prudent stewardship of capital, and alignment of management interests with owner interests. It means pursuing sustainable long-term value rather than extracting short-term gains that mortgage the future. Justice also means not privileging shareholders above all other stakeholders. The company exists within a web of relationships. Extracting maximum shareholder value by exploiting employees, customers, or communities is not just and ultimately not sustainable. Justice toward communities. Just treatment means contributing positively to the communities where you operate. It means obeying laws, paying appropriate taxes, and minimizing negative externalities. It means considering impacts beyond your immediate stakeholders. The Stoics understood that we are all part of larger wholes, community, humanity, cosmos. The just leader operates with this awareness.
Temperance in success and abundance. Temperance is perhaps the most neglected virtue in contemporary business culture. We celebrate excess, extreme growth, extreme wealth, extreme ambition. Moderation seems boring, a philosophy for those who cannot achieve more. The Stoics saw differently. They understood that immoderation destroys leaders with clockwork reliability. Temperance with success. Success intoxicates. It distorts perception, inflates confidence, and diminishes the vigilance that created it. The CEO who begins believing their own mythology is already declining. The temperate leader receives success with gratitude but not identification. You appreciate accomplishments without defining yourself by them. You remember that fortune is fickle and that the qualities that create success, humility, hunger, attention, erode when success is grasped too tightly. Temperance with wealth. Money is a tool, not a measure of worth. The temperate CEO maintains perspective on wealth, appreciating the options it provides without becoming enslaved to its pursuit or accumulation. Seneca was one of the wealthiest men in Rome. He was criticized for this, given his Stoic teachings. His response? Wealth is not inherently corrupting. Attachment to wealth is. He claimed he could lose everything tomorrow without losing himself. Few leaders could honestly make the same claim. The temperate CEO cultivates genuine indifference to wealth's presence or absence, easier to preach than to practice, but essential to pursue. Temperance with power. Power distorts relationships and perception. People treat you differently when you have power over them. Information filters before reaching you. Your jokes become funnier, your ideas become better, your flaws become invisible. The temperate leader remains skeptical of these distortions. You create structures that counteract power's corrupting influence: devil's advocates, anonymous feedback, access for dissenting voices. You remember that your power is borrowed and temporary. The integrated leader. These four virtues are not separate compartments, but interwoven aspects of excellent character. Wisdom informs what courage and justice require. Courage enables wisdom and justice to be enacted. Justice directs wisdom and courage toward proper ends. Temperance prevents wisdom from becoming cleverness, courage from becoming recklessness, and justice from becoming self-righteousness. The Stoic CEO pursues all four simultaneously, understanding that genuine leadership excellence requires nothing less.
Chapter 6. Building a Stoic Culture. Culture as character writ large. An organization's culture is the collective character of its people. It is the sum of shared values, assumptions, and behaviors that determine how work actually gets done, regardless of what official policies proclaim. Culture is not created by mission statements or values posters. It is created by what leaders do, what behaviors are rewarded, what behaviors are tolerated, and what behaviors are punished. Culture is caught, not taught. The Stoic CEO understands that building a virtuous culture is the highest leverage activity of leadership. Systems and strategies can be copied, culture cannot. A culture aligned with Stoic principles, focused on what can be controlled, transforming obstacles into opportunities, emotionally regulated, committed to virtue, becomes an enduring competitive advantage. But such a culture does not emerge accidentally. It must be deliberately constructed, beginning with the people you invite into the organization. Hiring for character. Most hiring processes focus on skills and experience. These matter, but they are insufficient. Skills can be developed. Experience can be gained. Character is far more difficult to change. The Stoic CEO prioritizes character in hiring decisions. Assessing wisdom. Wisdom reveals itself in how candidates think, not just what they know. Ask about decisions that proved wrong. Wise candidates acknowledge errors without excessive defensiveness. They demonstrate learning rather than blame shifting. They show nuanced understanding of what they would do differently. Ask about situations with no clear right answer. Wise candidates think through trade-offs explicitly. They consider multiple stakeholder perspectives. They acknowledge uncertainty without becoming paralyzed by it. Ask about times they change their minds. Wise candidates have updated beliefs based on new evidence. Intellectual flexibility indicates wisdom. Rigid certainty often indicates its absence. Assessing courage. Courage reveals itself in how candidates have handled difficulty. Ask about times they disagreed with superiors. Courageous candidates have spoken up despite risk. They describe how they raised concerns constructively. They do not confuse courage with recklessness or insubordination. Ask about failures and setbacks. Courageous candidates take ownership rather than hiding behind circumstances. They describe how they persisted through difficulty. They show resilience without bravado. Ask about ethical dilemmas. Courageous candidates have faced situations where doing right was costly. They describe their reasoning and actions. The absence of such examples may indicate either an easy path or a troubling willingness to compromise. Assessing justice. Justice reveals itself in how candidates treat others, not just interviewers, but receptionists, assistants, and anyone they encounter. Candidates who are charming to decision-makers but dismissive of others reveal their character clearly. Ask about times they advocated for others. Just candidates have championed colleagues, subordinates, or external stakeholders. They demonstrate concern beyond self-interest. Ask about how they handled conflicts. Just candidates describe fair processes and genuine attempts to understand opposing perspectives. They do not demonize former colleagues or employers. Assessing temperance. Temperance reveals itself in candidates' relationship with success and ambition. Ask about their greatest achievements. Temperate candidates share credit readily. They acknowledge luck and help from others. They show pride without arrogance.
Ask about their ambitions. Temperate candidates have goals, but not at any cost. They describe boundaries they would not cross. They show balance between professional and personal domains. Ask about times they were wrong or overconfident. Temperate candidates have experienced the consequences of excess and learned from them. Total absence of such examples suggests either a very unusual path or insufficient self-awareness.
Creating psychological safety. A Stoic culture requires what modern researchers call psychological safety, the shared belief that the team is safe for interpersonal risk-taking. Without psychological safety, people hide mistakes, suppress concerns, and present false confidence. The organization loses access to the truth it needs to function effectively. The Stoic CEO creates psychological safety through deliberate practices. Model vulnerability. Leaders set the tone. When you acknowledge your own mistakes openly, others feel permission to do the same. When you admit uncertainty, others stop pretending to know everything. When you ask for help, others recognize that needing assistance is not shameful. This does not mean performing weakness or manufacturing confessions. It means genuine honesty about your limitations and learning edges. Marcus Aurelius modeled this in his Meditations, cataloging his flaws and struggles for his own reflection. Respond to failure with curiosity. When mistakes occur, the leader's immediate response shapes culture powerfully. Responding with blame and punishment teaches people to hide problems. Responding with curiosity, what happened? What can we learn? How do we prevent this? Teaches people that mistakes are data for improvement. This does not mean ignoring accountability. Repeated failures, failures from negligence, and failures from ethical violations require consequences. But the first response to honest mistakes should be learning, not punishment. Reward truth-telling. Explicitly recognize and reward people who surface problems, challenge assumptions, and deliver unwelcome news. The messenger who is shot becomes a cautionary tale that suppresses future truth-telling. The messenger who is thanked becomes an example that encourages it. Seek out dissenting views actively. In meetings, ask specifically for concerns and disagreements. Create channels for anonymous feedback. Demonstrate that disagreement is valued, not merely tolerated. Separate decisions from egos. When ideas are identified with their authors, criticizing the idea feels like criticizing the person. This inhibits honest evaluation. The Stoic leader creates distance between ideas and identities. Frame decisions as collective problem-solving rather than competitions between proposals. Celebrate changing one's mind as intellectual courage rather than defeat.
Long-term thinking over quarterly panic. Modern business culture is plagued by short-termism. Quarterly earnings pressure drives decisions that sacrifice sustainable value for immediate results. Leaders manage to metrics rather than managing the business. The Stoic CEO resists this pressure through deliberate commitment to long-term thinking. Define what you are building. Clarity about long-term purpose inoculates against short-term distraction. What will this organization look like in 10 years, 20? What value will it create for customers, employees, and society? What legacy will it leave? When these questions have clear answers, quarterly fluctuations assume proper proportion. They matter, but they do not define success or failure. Measure what matters long-term. The metrics you track shape the behaviors you get. If you only measure short-term financial results, you optimize for short-term financial results, often at the expense of customer relationships, employee development, and sustainable competitive advantage. The Stoic CEO tracks leading indicators of long-term health, customer satisfaction and retention, employee engagement and development, product quality and innovation, brand reputation and trust. These metrics may not appear on quarterly earnings reports, but they determine whether the company will exist to file future reports. Communicate long-term thinking explicitly. Stakeholders need to understand your time horizon. Investors attracted to short-term results will create pressure incompatible with long-term building. Employees uncertain about the future will optimize for personal safety rather than organizational success.
Clear communication about long-term vision attracts aligned stakeholders and repels misaligned ones. This filtering function is valuable even when it costs you investors or employees who would have created friction. Resist panic. When results disappoint, the temptation to reactive short-term action intensifies. Slash costs, change strategy, replace leaders, do something visible. Sometimes such actions are appropriate. Often they are panic disguised as decisiveness. The Stoic CEO distinguishes between them. Before major reactive moves, ask, is this action aligned with our long-term strategy? Or is it driven by the discomfort of disappointing results and the desire to appear in control? Am I responding to genuine signal or to noise? Legacy and purpose beyond profit. The Stoics understood that we are part of larger wholes: family, community, humanity, cosmos. The Stoic CEO operates with this expanded perspective. Profit is necessary for organizational survival, but profit is not purpose. The organization exists to create value for stakeholders, value that extends beyond financial returns to investors. What problems does your organization solve? Whose lives does it improve? What would be lost if it ceased to exist? The Stoic CEO articulates and pursues purpose beyond profit. This is not soft-headed idealism. Research consistently demonstrates that purpose-driven organizations outperform over the long term. Employees are more engaged when their work has meaning. Customers are more loyal to companies they believe in. Communities support organizations that support them. Purpose is not a marketing strategy. It is not a slogan crafted by consultants. It is a genuine commitment to contribution that shapes decisions even when no one is watching. The Stoic CEO builds an organization worthy of existing.
Chapter 7. The Stoic CEO's Daily Rituals. Philosophy as Practice. The Stoics were adamant. Philosophy is not what you read or discuss. Philosophy is what you do. Wisdom that does not change behavior is merely intellectual entertainment. This is why the Stoics developed specific practices, daily rituals that translate abstract principles into concrete habits. These practices were not optional supplements to Stoic philosophy. They were Stoic philosophy in action. The modern leader faces the same challenge as the ancient Stoic. Knowledge alone does not transform. You may understand the dichotomy of control intellectually while still losing sleep over things you cannot influence. You may believe in emotional regulation while still firing off angry emails. You may endorse long-term thinking while still panicking over quarterly results. Daily practices close the gap between understanding and living. The rituals that follow require minimal time, perhaps 30 minutes total across morning and evening. Their impact far exceeds their duration. Practiced consistently, they will reshape how you experience leadership. Morning preparation. The Stoics began each day with deliberate mental preparation. Before entering the world's chaos, they established internal order. Marcus Aurelius described his morning practice. Begin each day by telling yourself, "Today I shall be meeting with interference, ingratitude, insolence, disloyalty, ill will, and selfishness, all of them due to the offender's ignorance of what is good or evil." This is not pessimism. It is preparation. By anticipating difficulty, Marcus inoculated himself against reactive surprise. When challenges arose, they confirmed his expectations rather than disrupting his equanimity. The morning review, 10 to 15 minutes. Upon waking, before checking email or news, take 10 to 15 minutes for deliberate preparation. Review your principles. What matters most to you? What kind of leader do you want to be today? Reconnect briefly with your core values and commitments. Some leaders read a few passages from the Stoic texts, Marcus Aurelius, Seneca, Epictetus. Others review personal principles they have written. The format matters less than the reconnection. Preview the day. What challenges will you likely face? What meetings, decisions, or interactions might trigger reactive responses? Who might frustrate you? What news might unsettle you?
For each anticipated challenge, briefly consider how you want to respond. Visualize yourself handling difficulty with composure and wisdom. This mental rehearsal primes your brain for actual performance. Set your intentions. What do you want to accomplish today? What priorities deserve your best energy? What is the one thing that, if done well, would make this day successful? Write these intentions. Writing creates commitment and clarity that mental noting cannot match. Affirm what you control. Remind yourself of the dichotomy. You cannot control outcomes today, only your effort, your responses, and your character. Release attachment to specific results. Commit to excellence in what you can control.
Evening reflection. The Stoics ended each day with examination. Before sleep, they reviewed how they had lived the hours just past. Seneca described his evening practice. When the light has been removed and my wife has become silent, I examine my entire day and go back over what I have done and said, hiding nothing from myself, passing nothing by. This is not self-flagellation. It is honest assessment in service of improvement. The evening review surfaces patterns invisible during the day's busyness. The evening review, 10 to 15 minutes. Before bed, take 10 to 15 minutes for deliberate reflection. What went well today? Acknowledge what you handled effectively. Recognize moments of wisdom, courage, justice, or temperance. This is not self-congratulation, but accurate assessment. You cannot build on strengths you do not recognize. What could have gone better? Where did you fall short of your own standards? Did you react when you should have responded? Did you avoid a difficult conversation? Did you let fear or anger drive decisions? Did you violate any of the 4 virtues? Be honest but not harsh. Seneca compared himself to a defendant before a lenient judge, seeking truth, not punishment. The goal is learning, not guilt. What will you do differently tomorrow? Each shortcoming is an opportunity for improvement. Identify 1 or 2 specific adjustments for tomorrow. Perhaps you will pause longer before responding to triggering emails. Perhaps you will have the conversation you avoided today. Perhaps you will focus more deliberately on your highest priority. Write these commitments. Writing creates accountability. Release the day. Whatever happened today, good or bad, is now past. You cannot change it. Learn what it teaches, then let it go. Tomorrow is a new opportunity. The Stoics understood that rumination serves no purpose. The evening review extracts lessons from experience, then closes the ledger. You can sleep with a clear mind. Journaling for leaders. Many Stoics kept written journals. Marcus Aurelius's Meditations began as a personal journal, private notes to himself, never intended for publication. Writing clarifies thinking. When thoughts remain in your head, they loop endlessly, often growing more distorted with each cycle. Writing externalizes thoughts, making them concrete and examinable. You can see their flaws, test their logic, and develop them further. The Stoic CEO keeps a leadership journal. What to write? Morning intentions and evening reflections as described above. Responses to challenging situations. What happened, how you reacted, what you would do differently. Decisions and your reasoning, creating a record for future review. Insights from reading, conversations, or experience. Gratitude, what you appreciate, what is going well. Concerns and fears, externalizing them reduces their power. How to write. Keep it simple, a notebook by your bed or a dedicated digital document. A few paragraphs daily. No one will read this but you, so abandon perfectionism. The practice matters more than the product. Consistency matters more than length. 5 minutes daily exceeds an hour once monthly. Premeditatio malorum, preparing for what can go wrong. The Stoics practiced negative visualization, deliberately imagining potential misfortunes before they occur. This practice, called premeditatio malorum, may seem morbid. It is actually profoundly practical. By imagining what can go wrong, you accomplish several things simultaneously. You reduce surprise. When difficulties arrive, they confirm your preparation rather than shocking your system.
You develop contingencies. Visualization naturally generates "what would I do if" thinking that improves your readiness. You appreciate what you have. Imagining loss highlights the value of what you currently possess but may take for granted. You decrease attachment. By mentally rehearsing letting go, you loosen the grip of possessions, positions, and outcomes on your psychological well-being. The practice. Regularly, weekly, or when facing major initiatives, spend 10 minutes visualizing what could go wrong. What if this product launch fails? What if this key employee leaves? What if the market turns against us? What if I become ill? What if our largest customer defects? For each scenario, briefly consider: how would I respond? What resources would I draw upon? How would I maintain equanimity? What might I learn or gain even from this loss? This is not anxious rumination. It is deliberate, calm preparation. The goal is not to generate fear, but to inoculate against it. Voluntary discomfort and maintaining perspective. The Stoics deliberately exposed themselves to discomfort to maintain perspective and build resilience. Seneca periodically lived as if poor, eating simple food, wearing rough clothing, sleeping on a hard surface, not from necessity but from choice. Set aside a certain number of days, he wrote, during which you shall be content with the scantiest and cheapest fare, with coarse and rough dress, saying to yourself the while, "Is this the condition that I feared?" Modern equivalents might include fasting occasionally, remembering what hunger feels like and appreciating abundant food. Sleeping without climate control, experiencing discomfort that most of humanity endures. Taking cold showers, building tolerance for physical discomfort that translates to psychological resilience. Traveling simply, flying economy, staying in modest accommodations, remembering that luxury is optional. Disconnecting from technology, spending days without the devices that create constant stimulation. The purpose is not self-punishment. It is maintaining perspective that comfort can erode. The leader who fears losing comfort is controlled by that fear. The leader who has practiced discomfort knows it is survivable. The compound effect of daily practice. No single morning prepares you for a lifetime of leadership. No single evening reflection transforms your character. These practices work through accumulation. Day after day, you reconnect with your principles. Day after day, you anticipate challenges. Day after day, you review your performance and adjust. Over months and years, these small practices compound into fundamental transformation. You become more aware of your reactions. You catch yourself before reactive responses. You develop the equanimity that seemed impossible when you started. The Stoic CEO is not born but made through daily, deliberate practice. Chapter 8. Memento Mori. Urgency and Legacy. The most important fact. There is one fact about your life that you know with absolute certainty but rarely consider. You will die. This is not morbid observation. For the Stoics, it was the most important fact of existence, the reality that, properly understood, transforms how you live and lead. Marcus Aurelius returned to mortality constantly in his meditations. "You could leave life right now," he wrote. "Let that determine what you do and say and think." Seneca was equally direct. "Let us prepare our minds as if we had come to the very end of life. Let us postpone nothing. Let us balance life's books each day." The Stoics were not death-obsessed pessimists. They were realists who understood that awareness of mortality creates urgency, clarifies priorities, and demands meaning. The leader who forgets death wastes time on trivialities. The leader who remembers death focuses on what truly matters. Mortality as motivation. Consider how you would lead differently if you knew this was your final year. Would you tolerate that underperforming executive another 12 months, or would you finally have the difficult conversation? Would you pursue that initiative you keep postponing, or would you recognize that someday may never arrive? Would you spend your days in back-to-back meetings about marginal issues, or would you ruthlessly protect time for what matters most? Would you nurture grievances against colleagues who slighted you, or would you recognize how petty those concerns are against the backdrop of mortality?
Would you sacrifice your health, your relationships, and your integrity for quarterly results, or would you remember that no one on their deathbed wishes they had worked more weekends? The awareness of death does not create anxiety for the Stoic, it creates clarity. It burns away the trivial and reveals the essential. It transforms vague intentions into urgent actions. You do not actually know whether this is your final year, but you know with certainty that a final year will come. The Stoic CEO lives with this awareness, not constantly preoccupied with death, but never entirely forgetful of it. Making decisions with the end in mind. The Stoics used mortality as a decision-making tool. When facing choices, they asked, "How will this look at the end of my life? What will I wish I had done?" This perspective cuts through complexity with remarkable efficiency. Career decisions. When considering roles, opportunities, or transitions, the end-of-life perspective clarifies what matters. Will you be proud of this work? Does it align with your values? Does it contribute to something meaningful? Or does it merely offer status and compensation that will mean nothing when your time concludes? The Stoic CEO pursues work worth doing, not by external standards, but by the standard of a life well lived. Ethical decisions. When facing temptations to compromise integrity, imagine looking back from your final days. Will you be proud of how you handled this situation? Will you be at peace with the shortcuts you took? The gains from ethical violations are temporary. The loss of integrity is permanent. The end-of-life perspective makes this calculus unmistakable. Relationship decisions. When considering how to treat employees, partners, customers, and competitors, imagine reviewing these relationships at the end. Will you be proud of your fairness, your generosity, your honesty? Or will you recognize patterns of exploitation and manipulation that serve short-term interests while degrading your character? The Stoic CEO treats people as ends in themselves, not merely means to organizational objectives. Time decisions. When considering how to spend your finite hours, the mortality perspective becomes urgent. Every hour spent on the trivial is an hour not spent on the meaningful. Every day postponing what matters is a day subtracted from limited supply. The Stoic CEO guards time ferociously. You cannot recover wasted time, you can only choose to stop wasting it. What you want your leadership to mean. Legacy is not about monuments or memorials. It is about impact, the difference your leadership makes in the lives of others and the world you leave behind. The Stoic CEO reflects seriously on legacy. Impact on people. How will the people you have led remember their experience? Did they grow under your leadership? Did they discover capabilities they did not know they possessed? Did they become better professionals and better humans? Or did they simply survive your tenure, recovering from the experience rather than building upon it? The leaders who matter most are those who develop other leaders. Your ultimate legacy is not what you accomplish directly, but what you enable others to accomplish after you are gone. Impact on organizations. What kind of organization will you leave behind? Is it healthier, stronger, more capable than when you arrived? Does it have the culture, systems, and leadership to thrive without you? The Stoic CEO builds organizations that outlast individual leaders. You are not the point. The institution is the point. Your job is to make yourself unnecessary. Impact on the world. What problems has your organization solved? What value has it created? What would be worse in the world if your organization had never existed? These questions have no universal right answer, but they deserve serious consideration. The Stoic CEO leads organizations that contribute positively to human flourishing, not merely extracting value, but creating it. The Stoic CEO's final exam. Imagine yourself at the end of your career, or the end of your life, reviewing your leadership. What questions would you ask yourself? Did I lead with wisdom? Did I seek truth, acknowledge what I did not know, and make decisions that served long-term flourishing rather than short-term ego? Did I lead with courage? Did I face difficult situations directly? Did I speak truth when it was costly? Did I take necessary risks despite fear? Did I lead with justice? Did I treat people fairly? Employees, customers, partners, communities? Did I hold myself to the same standards I applied to others? Did I lead with temperance?
Did I maintain perspective in success and failure? Did I avoid the excesses that destroy leaders? Did I lead with humility? Did I focus on what I could control? Did I invest my energy wisely, or did I exhaust myself fighting battles I could not win? Did I transform obstacles into opportunities? Did I grow through adversity? Did I help my organization become anti-fragile? Did I regulate my emotions? Did I respond thoughtfully rather than react impulsively? Did I model composure for others? Did I build a culture of virtue? Did I hire for character? Did I create psychological safety? Did I prioritize long-term health over short-term results? Did I practice what I believed? Did my daily rituals align with my professed philosophy? Did I close the gap between knowing and doing? Did I remember that my time was finite? Did I act with appropriate urgency? Did I leave a legacy worth leaving? These questions constitute the Stoic CEO's final exam. You cannot answer them at the end if you do not consider them along the way. Beginning now. You will not face that final exam today, but you will face today. And today's decisions, today's actions, today's practice, these are the raw materials from which your final answers will be constructed. Every day is a small life. Every morning is a small birth. Every evening is a small death. The Stoic CEO lives each day as if it mattered, because it does. The ancient Roman generals, during triumphal processions, employed servants to whisper in their ears, "Memento mori," remember that you will die. This was not intended to diminish the celebration, but to keep it in perspective. Even in your greatest victories, remember mortality. Even in your highest moments, remember humility. The Stoic CEO carries this whisper always.
Conclusion. The ongoing practice. The ongoing practice, you have now encountered the essential teachings of Stoic philosophy applied to modern leadership. You understand the dichotomy of control, the transformation of obstacles, the regulation of emotions, the four cardinal virtues, the building of culture, the daily practices, and the urgency of mortality. But understanding is not yet wisdom. Wisdom emerges from practice, from daily, deliberate application of these principles in the messy reality of organizational life. You will not become a Stoic CEO by reading this book. You will become one by living these teachings, one decision at a time. You will fail frequently. You will react when you intended to respond. You will focus on what you cannot control. You will let fear or anger drive decisions. You will fall short of the virtues you profess. This is not failure. This is practice. The Stoics themselves were not perfect Stoics. Marcus Aurelius struggled with anger throughout his life. His meditations reveal ongoing wrestling, not completed victory. Seneca acknowledged the gap between his teachings and his behavior. Epictetus spent his career reminding students of principles they kept forgetting. You will join this tradition of imperfect practitioners. What matters is not perfection, but direction. Are you moving toward wisdom, courage, justice, and temperance? Are you learning from setbacks? Are you practicing daily? Starting tomorrow morning. Before you check email or begin the day's chaos, take 10 minutes. Reconnect with your principles. Preview the challenges ahead. Set your intentions. Remind yourself of what you can and cannot control. This is how philosophy becomes life. A final meditation. You did not choose to be born. You did not choose the circumstances of your early life, but you, every day, who you become. Choose to lead with virtue. Choose to build something worth building. Choose to become the leader you are capable of being. The Stoics are watching. Your people are watching. History is watching. Most importantly, you are watching. Make yourself proud. The end. Conclusion. The ongoing practice. You have now encountered the essential teachings of Stoic philosophy applied to modern leadership. You understand the dichotomy of control, the transformation of obstacles, the regulation of emotions, the four cardinal virtues, the building of culture, the daily practices, and the urgency of mortality. But understanding is not yet wisdom. Wisdom emerges from practice, from daily, deliberate application of these principles in the messy reality of organizational life.
You will not become a Stoic CEO by reading this book. You will become one by living these teachings, one decision at a time. You will fail frequently. You will react when you intended to respond. You will focus on what you cannot control. You will let fear or anger drive decisions. You will fall short of the virtues you profess. This is not failure. This is practice. The Stoics themselves were not perfect Stoics. Marcus Aurelius struggled with anger throughout his life. His meditations reveal ongoing wrestling, not completed victory. Seneca acknowledged the gap between his teachings and his behavior. Epictetus spent his career reminding students of principles they kept forgetting. You will join this tradition of imperfect practitioners. What matters is not perfection, but direction. Are you moving toward wisdom, courage, justice, and temperance? Are you learning from setbacks? Are you practicing daily? Starting tomorrow morning. Before you check email or begin the day's chaos, take 10 minutes. Reconnect with your principles. Preview the challenges ahead. Set your intentions. Remind yourself of what you can and cannot control. This is how philosophy becomes life. A final meditation. You did not choose to be born. You did not choose the circumstances of your early life. But you choose every day who you become. Choose to lead with virtue. Choose to build something worth building. Choose to become the leader you are capable of being. The Stoics are watching. Your people are watching. History is watching. Most importantly, you are watching. Make yourself proud.